Okay, go ahead.
Shon.
Communication.
Television.
Matriculation.
Once we finish one, Sean, so we just clapping our hands.
So will I start the Sean?
Okay, Sean.
Communication.
Congratulations. Sean. Communication, incapacitation, television.
Sean. Communication.
Lotion.
Action.
Association.
Solicitation, Abi.
Reconciliation.
Nation.
Promotion.
Confusion. Intuition.
Intrusion.
Magnification.
Abomination.
Dedication.
Nutrition.
Attention.
Congratulations.
Attention.
Impartation.
Salvation.
Rotation.
Constitution.
Constitution.
Condition.
Attention.
Information.
Hello. We're just going to sing so that we'll have quick digestion, now. So this line, you are pawpaw. The line behind watermelon, we are banana. So we're just going to sing, have fun, and so that when we go home today, we'll do fruit salad. So it's fruit salad. So when we say watermelon, the watermelon people will stand. Pawpaw people will stand. Then banana. For those that can stand. Watermelon. Papaya. Banana. Fruit salad. Now we'll be doing it very fast as an exercise now. Watermelon, papaya. Banana. Fruit salad. Please don't forget to take your fruit salad this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much once again, and welcome back from the tea break. We are moving to the next item on the agenda, and which is the echo circles of GBV referral pathway. The echo circle of GBV referral pathway and what we can do. So I'll start by saying the echo circle of GBV referral pathway is not new to us. It is something that we understand. We are the expert in this field. But then we want to look at how disability inclusion is infused into this circle and what we can do to ensure that persons with disability can access this circle. Please, I'll take 3 minutes. protection. And are we good, sir? All right, thank you. So, like I said earlier, we are the experts in the room. The echo circle of the GBV referral pathway is what we do currently. It's our work. So we are not actually here to bore us with all of this because it is something that we already know. But then we are just going to understand the disability dynamics to the echo circle GBV referral pathway. Next slide. Okay, sorry. So let's start this with a quiz. And I am going to start with what does a warm referral means. I have 4 options on the screen. Option A is giving a survivor a phone number. Option B, escorting the survivor without consent. Option C, actively supporting the survivor to access the next services. Option D, referring only within one sector.
The C is not loud enough. I'm hearing B.
Do we have any contrary opinion? Okay. Option D. Yes, C. All right. Option C is actually the correct answer. A warm referral means actively supporting survivor to access the next services. So for us as GBV actors responding to women and girls with disability, it's actually important that we understand how to support women and girls with disability to access all the pathways and then linking them up with the necessary actor needed for them to get justice. And the next question is, which is not a disability inclusive practice? Which is not a disability inclusive practice? A, asking what accommodation a survivor need. B, assuming a caregiver should speak for the survivor. C, providing information in plain language. D, offering sign language interpretation. Sorry? B, assuming a caregiver should speak for the survivor. Okay, so the question is, which is not disability inclusive practice? A, asking what accommodation a survivor needs. B, assuming a caregiver should speak for the survivor. C, providing information in plain language. D, offering sign language interpreter. Is B. B, assuming a caregiver should speak for the survivor. So no matter who the survivor is, no matter who the caregiver is, even if the caregiver happens to be the parent, the mother or the father of the survivor, you don't assume because they are the one that have actually brought the survivor to your center to access services, so they have the right to speak on behalf of the survivor. Many times, persons with disability goes to access facilities, especially people that use personal assistance, aid, sign language interpreter. You would imagine that I am interpreting for Madam Ellen, and at the end of the day, you wanted to meet her, you just faced me as the sign language interpreter, and you're asking me, what is her name? She can speak for herself. You should direct the question to her. What is your name? Rather than what is her name. So assuming caregiver should speak on behalf of the survivor is actually not a disability inclusive practice. I have another question. A major GBV risk factor for persons with disability is A, over-reporting. B, dependency on caregiver. C, strong family protection. D, legal awareness. I'll take the question again. A major risk for person with disability is A, over-reporting, B, dependency on caregiver, C, strong family protection, D, legal awareness. Final answer, B. I'm hearing B, I'm hearing D. Okay, so if your answer is B, can you please put up your hand? B, if your answer is B, raise up your hand. If your answer is D, raise up your hand. D, okay? The correct answer is B, dependency on caregiver. A major risk factor for women and girls with disability is over-dependency on the caregiver. Their inability to be able to separate themselves and make decisions. We have listened to stories, even in this room this morning, about someone that was being violated. And I think Ave, the FCT woman leader, raised the question, asking why perpetrator, what do they do to ensure that their victims stayed victimized? So it is because they are over-dependent on the caregiver, and many of them might not be economically or financially empowered to be able to stand on their own and speak for themselves. So I have a true or false question on the screen. Survivors with intellectual disability can make decisions about referral. True or false? Survivors with intellectual disability cannot make decision about referral. The mic is not working.
Most of them do not even know what reference mean. They, number one, do they know what it means? You are referring them like in NAPTIP when you are making a referral, we are giving them a note. You are going to this place because they are not aware that this center or this place exists. So what? And some of them are, well, I don't want to use this one. You know, the sense is not there. You are the one to provide for them. You are the one that know, the caregiver knows that this place exists. This place is better for them. This one is better for them. So for me, it's false.
Okay, so for me, I would say they can, because first of all, when you talk about intellectual disability, we need to understand that these things are of spectrum. So you need to know that you cannot use the experience of one person with an intellectual disability to generalize every person with an intellectual disability. And secondly, if you are talking about referrals or the person speaking for himself, there are different ways to get an information from a person with an intellectual disability. So you have to pay close attention to that person. So that is why we are saying most times these people can give consent for themselves, they can give information. What you need is the patient to calm down, try to understand the person, or break the message into a way that this person would understand. If you break the message into, you can use dramatic ways. that person with an intellectual disability will get what you want, and the person will give you what you want.
Thank you so very much. Honestly, I am supporting the first and second speaker. To me, maybe the question is supposed to have additional option. Maybe after true, false, all of the above, none of the above. Because person with intellectual disability are different. There is different level of intellectual disability. Some can and some cannot. Therefore, only true of us cannot answer this question to my own view. Thank you.
So I really love the fact that we throw light into the answer true or false. So if you look at it from the human right base, using the instrument that we do use, like the UNCRPD itself, I'll actually go with them, the truth. And you can actually go with the false. Because it's spectrum. You can actually use different ways in getting those answers from them and explaining in details to them, actually. Using the human right indicators, the structural indicators, it refers to the instrument itself. So you cannot make a decision for them on their own. You cannot make a decision. You ask them first. And you use several ways to ask them what they feel, how they feel it, how do you know about this? And they will give you a response. So it's either true or it's false. But you can actually go with it true, though. But I'll leave it for Bukumi, my colleague. She has the answer.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. Please, can we go back to the slide? Survivors with intellectual disabilities cannot make decisions about referral. The answer is actually false.
From the person. And legal capacity is very important when it comes to disability. And if you say that they cannot decide for themselves, you are generalizing, like she mentioned, based on their spectrum. You are removing that capacity. And there are a lot of literatures now, you know, talking about this issue of capacity when it comes to persons with intellectual disability. Thank you.
There is a pilot document that Site Savers worked on which project. So on that document, they have some processes that you must go through when you are trying to get an information from a person with intellectual disabilities. When you've gone through that processes and you can't get the information from the person, that is when you can now say, okay, let me leverage on the caregiver. But just concluding on it, to me, I don't think is right.
I would like to cite an example because intellectual disabilities varies. Some cases are very severe, while some are mild. Some can actually take decision. Yes, they can. For example, I will use my name. Mariam is a person with intellectual disability. You understand? Her mother usually take her to Auntie Maimuna. She will stay there for some hours. All of a sudden, she's saying no. Whenever they take her there, she does not want to stay. Initially, she used to stay. But all of a sudden, she is saying no. She can't say it, but from her actions and her behavior, she will not stay. As soon as her mom is leaving, she will start crying. But she can't really say, Mom, I don't want to stay. There's a reason. So she is taking decision. Why some they cannot? They cannot really comprehend what is going on. In other words, their caregivers or parents has to take decision for them. So they can or they cannot, depending on the case. Yeah.
Please, Bukumi, can you flash the question? Can you flash the question?
Yes,
Instead
sir.
of,
Yes,
So I think we've been trying to be too sentimental about this particular question because the question is kind of direct, though it affects a whole lot of things based on what has been discussed here. Survivors with intellectual disabilities cannot make decisions about referral. Does not mean that they don't have the right to make decisions about what they are going through. It does not mean that they cannot, based on they are disabled, they have intellectual disability. No. What this question is saying, are they in the position to take such decision, of which at this point is the professional that will take that decision to say, this is what I have observed based on all the queries to identify the issues at hand, and this is the expert that will handle it, and this is where it's located. That's what referral is all about. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the contributions to layer up the question. Actually, survivors with intellectual disability cannot make the decisions about referral. Is false. And this is because there is something we call supported decision making. So in this process, this does not mean that they are not making decisions, but the survivors, you don't automatically exclude them in the decision-making process. So the next one is accessibility should be budgeted as a core GBV cost. True or false?
Okay, thank you. When you say budgeting, there are class and types of budgeting. In this case, what is obtainable in this case is called inclusive budgeting. Like when you just, as the year is beginning, you want to make your budget for the year, or things you will do and things you wouldn't do. One thing that is paramount in your budget stage is inclusive budgeting. What inclusive budgeting does is it makes provision for those needed assistive devices, those technological devices that aid you to have an effective service delivery to persons with disabilities. Just like the way you make budgets and also set some monies aside for miscellaneous, same is applicable. Now, in your SAC center at a point, you may not have persons with disability coming. Why not just make an inclusive budget and keep some monies aside in case they come? If they do not come at the end of the year, it's still your monies. You can still divert it to something else. But if you're intentional about inclusive budget, you will find out that delivering services to persons that when they come to your center will be easy because there's already provision for it. Because most people make excuses with, we don't have this, we don't have that. These are things you can do from the formation stage of your budgeting by making it inclusive. Thank you.
Okay, so the answer is true, right? Yes, the answer is true. I know that earlier during the discussion we spoke about funding, and somebody spoke about getting a sign language interpreter and then talking about them demanding for payments. So accessibility should be part of our core budgets as centers, as referral centers, budgeting for reasonable accommodation, not just sign language interpreter, budgeting for assistive information, accessible information should be part of our core budgets. Thank you. And we move to the core concept, GBV referral pathway as an ecological eco-circle. GBV referral pathway as an ecological eco-circle. So the GBV referral pathway, when you talk about the eco-circle, that's the whole system loop of GBV response, is viewed through disability lens, and you know, it shows how survivors, women and girls with disability, the gender diverse, moves from the entry point to the response, to recovery, to justice and safety, and then through to integration, and how the system should continuously learn and improve. This referral pathway is not something that we are not currently engaging. From the entry point to the response to recovery and reintegration, we are experts in this aspect, and this is what we do as service providers. But what we are looking at this afternoon, is to see how we ensure that we accommodate persons with disability. What are the accessibility needs? What are the reasonable accommodation needs for women and girls with disability to go through the entry points, the response, recovery, the justice, and the reintegration. And we have identified a lot of gaps in the room earlier today to say that these are the things that we go through and see in our daily activities. And I would like us to look at this case study as a scenario. Aisha, a 24-year-old lady with multiple disability. She has deaf blindness and also physical disability. She lives in a crisis reading community in Zamfara State and was brutally abused by an older cousin who is also a primary caregiver and a member of the separatist group. Aisha arrives at a health facilities with untreated bruises, and her cousin insists on staying in the consultation room and answer all questions on her behalf. Aisha avoids eye contact and appears distressed. And I want us to discuss, how can providers safely create privacy when the Are we together? Okay, so the first question, based on this scenario, should I take it again? Aisha, a 24-year-old lady with multiple disability, deaf, blind, physical disability, lives in a crisis reading community in Zamfara State and was brutally abused by her older cousin, who is also a primary caregiver and a member of the separatist group. Aisha arrives at her health facilities with untreated bruises. Her cousin insists on staying in the consultation room and answer all questions on her behalf. Aisha avoids eye contact and appears distressed. Now, the first question is, how can providers safely create privacy when caregiver is the perpetrator? And it is amazing that we have the service provider and the Organization of Persons with Disabilities in the room. So I'm leaving it open. How can we create privacy when the caregiver is the perpetrator?
Answer to question number 1. Since the caregiver is the perpetrator of the I think the best way to handle the make it private for the victim is to excuse the caregiver. The caregiver will be asked to leave the room so that the service provider could speak with Aisha alone.
The last workshop we had, I said something about having our standard operating procedures, guidelines in our intake and case management processes. In a survivor-centered approach, privacy and confidentiality is key. You never know because there are no benchmarks. If you want to do an intake or interview a survivor in an atmosphere that is not compatible with the cognitive ability of that survivor, you will never get that case done. There's no magic you want to perform. You can't bring a survivor face-to-face, a victim face-to-face to the survivor. You cannot interrogate a survivor in a religious atmosphere, in the police station, or any atmosphere where there be triggers and stressors to the survivor. So what we do is that you must have a facility, a calming reception, a warm, safe, and non-threatening environment. I would like to encourage all of us here. If I take a census, the location of our offices, you can't be located in the military barracks or police barracks and expect somebody to open up to you. Or even in the marketplace where people are going around, anybody can eavesdrop and hear what you are saying. Or in a shrine or in a religious atmosphere, you won't get, or even in the hospital. So we are located in a residential area, very quiet, no signboard, nothing. So we bring in the survivor to what is called the calming reception. Your first contact of the case, never put the survivor and the caregiver together. Otherwise, you'll be confused. You will end up playing the devil's advocate without you knowing it. So without even the survivor or the victim saying anything, their interactions to places, to things, it could be with the furniture, we give you a lead to what is happening. And you just tell the caregiver, okay, you brought this case, blah, 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 sit outside. We've seen a particular case wherein the father was one molesting the challenged child, and a neighbor caught him and reprimanded him. And in order to blackmail that neighbor from reporting, he took the child, coached the child to lie to the police that was the neighbor that molested him, and they imprisoned the innocent child. But the police were quick to know that when he was not taking his child away from the police station, the way he carried the girl, pressing her body tightly to himself, they were able to detect. It could be the child's reaction to the furniture. At Checheyara, we have anatomical dolls that have private parts. So even if you're asking the child, because the child is meeting you for the first time, he doesn't know whether he or she doesn't know whether she trusts you, they may just speak with the door and start tearing the clothes off the door, or maybe scatter the furniture and I say, what's the problem? And a 6-year-old has done like this to me. You want to fight? That's how we got to know it's from a background where domestic violence is key. So you talk to the child, and you let the child know his or her rights, and you maintain confidentiality. And part of professionalism is being able to divorce your emotions from professionalism. If you break down and start crying, or you start lamenting, the child will say, this one even has more problem than me. I better not disclose. And then we must have our psychologist, because the last phrase in that case study says, obviously she was visibly distressed. You look at the time frame, and you must know at the back of your mind, a child that is abused by an outsider, the trauma is less than one that is abused by a member of the family. You know, familiar will come. There's this maxim we use, familiar abuse.
And once you're able to get it, and you can even do something like recording the child's statement, even if it's not forensic interview, you can have a video recording, and then you don't blame and shame victims. You say, I'm sorry this happened to you. If you don't have enough professionals, we partner with the Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs. Once you have that lead and you suspect something is wrong somewhere, maintain a neutral attitude and bring in the police. We've seen instances, we've done instances when we had to call an IPO from the gender desk. We just told the child, I even had to sit on the floor on the rug with the child. This is Uncle so and so. He likes to help children, blah, 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 blah. And the child started opening up. You understand? And the police got the lead. Because there was a case the child, this was the father that discovered, they were separated, discovered that the child was abused. And the mother said, yes, she's sure because they were divorced. And he's a womanizer. He has started on his own daughter. And the man said, how can I defile my own daughter and go and report to the police? So the exploratory therapy we did, immediately they brought in the child to our office. I just noticed, because the impression the mother gave the police was that it was the father, and the father, he was locked up from our gate. That's why you need to be vigilant. The child saw the security man, our security men. She ignored them. Our janitors, our male janitors were passing by. She didn't give them a second look. Our office driver was at the reception. She didn't even bother. Immediately she saw a receptionist. She started putting up some erotic attitude, started pulling her, touching her inappropriately. The IPO that came with that was a female, and that was trying to correct her. Don't touch the receptionist's breast. And that one just lifted her up. The next thing, she tried to unhook the IPO's bra, which put us on the red alert. So by the time we now brought her to the calming room, she said, tell us about the family. He said, okay, you want me to play daddy and mommy? This was then she did like this. That to her, that is play. Started throwing the furniture and everything like that. She started dancing erotically, and the medical evidence was so overwhelming. That's why you need specialized medical treatment. Is it through penile penetration, digital, or a blunt object? So when we are still getting confused, then we asked for, there's what is called family tracing. We asked for the living arrangement there. We asked the mother, who do you leave this child with? I'm out working. I leave the house 5 a.m. I come back 10 p.m. because this useless man, the terms the court gave us to be paying welfare, he doesn't pay. I said, who do you leave this girl with? He said, my niece. How old is she? 19. I said, what time do you leave the house? 5 a.m. Who wakes the child up? My niece. Who baths for her? My niece. Who takes her to school? My niece. Who cooks for her? My niece. Who baths for her? Then I said, what is the sleeping arrangement? I said, we have only one room. The 3 of us sleep on the same bed. The niece sleeps at the extreme to the wall. The child sleeps between the mother and the niece. So I told the police on the case, I think you need to follow up with the niece. And the police did a good job. When they took her phone, it was loaded with lesbianic pornographic child materials. And that, I mean, nobody would suspect, because the mother brought her niece in to take care of the child. And when the doctor said, this is digital penetration, not penile penetration. That was how the father was exonerated. Otherwise, he would have been locked up for life. So we need to put our processes in place. We must have the eyes of an hawk. Look at the child. What's the child attracted to? You see violence, you see attraction to same-sex relationship. Then you look for a gay person or a lesbian around that child. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's another hand.
Okay, to add to what the last speaker just said, talking about standard operating procedure, I see a lacuna in that case study. Please, can you project the case study where he said this person has multiple disabilities, deaf, blindness, and physical disability. In fact, the very first day I heard about deaf, blindness, and how to engage meaningfully with them, I got scared, because their own sign language is not the usual sign language of the someone who is either deaf or have hearing impairment. So I am looking at this response mechanism for it to be effective and effectual. There is a need to address that gap of interpreters for people with this particular disability. We have a lot of interpreters, sign language interpreters. In fact, it was in my coming into the disability space that I realized that even the sign language interpreters, some of them are not good with English. Some of them is the local languages that they know. So there is a need to kind of gazette this particular skill and understand, categorize it so that people that want to make it a skill for an income generating skill can, specialize on the ones that they really align with. Then the issue of this deaf blindness, the interpreter is also important to make the response mechanism holistic.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Do we have any other contributions? Okay.
So what I want to say is similar to what she just said. It's very important for service providers in shelters or in hospital, especially when it has to do with gender-based violence, to have even if it's a very, very small knowledge on how to communicate with persons with disabilities, because she may come with a tactile sign language interpreter, and that person still might be the perpetrator. And so what happens when it's just her and the service provider that is in the room? So my advice would be that the service provider, can try, since it's a deaf-blind person, to use, maybe hold her hands, try to dramatize the question. Who taught you here? Who did, she might be able to, use signs to let you know that, oh, maybe the person that just left here or something. So there is always a way to fill this gap. And that is only when the service providers are very intentional about this, trying to explore these things. If it's just a deaf person using pen and paper, if the person is uneducated, there is a way you can, but you just need to be very patient throughout the process.
All right. Thank you very much. Can we go back to the slide, sir? What referral options reduces Aisha dependency on the abuser? I guess she has mentioned something around that. What referral option reduces Aisha dependency on the abuser? And the last one is, what risk could arise if mandatory reporting is mishandled? Maybe we can answer it all together. What referral option reduces Aisha dependency on the abuser? And the last one is, what risk could arise if mandatory reporting is mishandled?
The referral option to reduce Aisha's dependency on the abuser starts with getting her into a safe space where she can be observed and where the caregiver will not have too much power over what happens to her on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Any other person?
Good afternoon. Yeah, in as much as we want to say the caregiver should not have constant access to the person, it's still going to be there's a thing about connectivity. When you meet somebody and okay, maybe you have 3 caregivers taking care of this one person in a whole month, and then she's connected to one person mostly. So body language also plays a huge role how does this person connect with these three caregivers in the long run? So this also, because in the end, we cannot avoid dependency. There's no way of avoiding dependency. I'm going to just go down to use the normal Nigerian mentality and just say we can only hope and pray. But in this particular case, she's like the multiple disability display, she's blind and she's deaf. So know how that somebody that comes and gives her the kind of caregiving that she actually appreciates, she's going to definitely become dependent on that person. So in the long run, we only hope that the person that she will get dependent on has a conscience. Because even if you say government establishment, most of the government establishments in existence now are not even working well. So in as much as we also hope that the caregiver is kind, we also hope that she has a good connection with the caregiver.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all the contribution. But from this case study, he actually spoke my mind when he talked about looking at the impairments that this survivor has. She is deaf-blind. Deaf-blind. So now from this case study, we cannot actually say if the deaf-blind can still be able to use his or her voice. Sorry. You cannot affirm that she can speak, use her voice, or she only needs tactile interpreter to hear what you are saying. So in this case, if she happens to be a deaf that does not speak, so you still need this caregiver to be able to respond to every question that you have for her in responding to the case. And then she is also a person with physical disability. Now, barriers, sorry, yes, ma'am?
A film called Black. Can we all try and watch that film?
Microphone back.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to say that can we just watch a film called Black? It's an Indian film. It will change your life and educate you about deaf-blind persons. Very interesting, award-winning film. Black, B-A-L-C-K. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. So from the case study, we actually see that there is dependency on perpetrator for mobility and daily care, because this is the person that moves around with this deaf-blind lady, that does everything with the deaf-blind lady. All of our response come from this caregiver, who happens to be the perpetrator. There is no private disclosure opportunity. There's no private disclosure opportunity. If you want to talk to the survivor, you are talking to the survivor through the caregiver. Just like we are in this room. Everything we are saying, every other person is hearing directly. But Madam Ellen, Madam Uche is hearing through the sign language interpreter. And she only hears what the interpreter says. Then fear of losing care and support. If at that point we don't have a safe space to keep the survivor, she will still go back home with the same caregiver. Yes or yes? So she will still go back home with the same caregiver. So in this case, what's the good practice? For neutral reason, like somebody said earlier, we can decide to separate the survivor from the caregiver for neutral reason. You know, let it not be obvious, because he's going to come back. And then ask the survivor what accommodation is needed. Is very important. It is very, very important. So the fact that this man in front here is actually interpreting for Madam Ellen does not mean that this is the only man that can interpret for Madam Ellen. There are could be other service providers, tactile interpreters that can fit in and be able to interpret clearly to the survivor. So always ask, what is the accommodation that is needed? Earlier when we were discussing, I know Madam Betty spoke about safety first before you now start asking for the accommodation. So in this case, can we start looking at safety planning in responding in our activities, which also include alternative caregiving support? Can we start looking at the safety of the survivor first? So in our organizations, in our facilities, in responding to GBV cases for women and girls with disability, can we start looking at ensuring we have not just facilities accessible alone, but also caregiving alternative to ensure that the moment the survivor comes into the facilities, either we are sure that the caregiver is the perpetrator or not, we already have an alternative to fall back to ensure that we provide an effective service. Then we spoke about warm referral earlier, ensure that we support survivor throughout the whole process, linking them to the next level of response, linking them to the next level of referral, and providing accessible shelter. Accessible shelter is a very huge topic that we need to consider for women and girls with disabilities. We've done the accessibility audit. The accessibility audit actually spoke generally about the physical accessibility. What about our policy accessibility? What about our communication? Because if you are keeping people in shelter, you're having a blind person in the shelter. The blind person needs to understand and be able to communicate with the facilities directly, without barriers. Okay? And then we should also ensure that in our responses, we are looking at supported decision making, depending on the kind of impairment we're responding to. I remember that at the last conference, we already shared a guiding principle on how to meaningfully engage persons with disability. And we spoke about different impairments and different accommodation needs that all of this impairment has. So I'm going to move to the next slide. The next slide. Okay. So for us, this is another case study. This is, I'm reading, after fleeing intimate partner violence, a mother of two with the ages of 5 and 8, Funke, a visually impaired woman, reported abuse and is referred to a shelter that has stairs without railing, no tactile marking, and staffs unfamiliar with guiding persons with visual impairment. This is the case. It's a very true scenario. The question, number one, is should survivor be expected to adapt to inaccessible shelter? How can referral directory capture accessibility information? And then in this case, what is the role of OPD? Please, can you help me pass the mic?
I said this is a difficult one, you know. Should survivor be expected to adapt? In a way.
There's no way she can adapt, because that will mean risking her life and even jeopardizing the welfare of those two children. I think the best that can be done is if the staff of the shelter is inclusive to have a guide, like when you are, maybe you just had a surgery in the hospital, somebody to take you around. Yeah, she'll need a one-on-one guide to take her around. And then another thing they can do, since she is partially impaired, if the shelter has
she's visually impaired.
yeah, okay, she's visually impaired, but I know some cases in which the victim can be visually impaired. We have sophisticated level of surgeries conducted. I think there was a time Chanrai Foundation came to Nigeria, and people that were even classified as visually impaired, they just look at them, they did surgery. Some got the restoration of one eye, while some got the restoration of two eyes. So it's a two-way thing. If you can help the person overcome the disability, it's just like you get somebody who is physically challenged, you can get crutches for the person, or maybe artificial limbs, anything to reduce the person's dependency on others. Thank you.
Okay. It's fallacy to say that the survivor should adapt because it's visually impaired. What manner of adapting will happen with that person? Adaptation will happen with such person. So I think operators of referral centers should learn to be, this quick response to the situation or issues as they come, and should always make a plan B for cases that are not regular in the facility. Because as someone who runs a facility, one of the things that we know is that there are peculiar issues that we see every day in the facility. But with persons with disability, it's not always an everyday thing. But we always make an arrangement. Should someone who is not dumb or deaf comes in, that's hearing impairment, comes in, we always have a standby interpreter, sign language interpreter, that must be called upon, and that person understood and has a contract with us. Then I also believe that for this woman now who is visually impaired and found herself in a referral center that the staircase has no railing, there is need for a provision of a guide like the last speaker mentioned. So it's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot. I was discussing with my colleague and she said the work is enormous. The least anybody can do for this work is to bring money. But the actual work of sitting and attending to these issues as they come is a whole lot. And it demands a lot of flexibility for you to be able to meet up with what's needed at all times. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other contribution in the room? Okay, Madam Betty.
Thank you very much. I must have to say that I'm impressed with the level of response. The other time I asked Comfort to keep calm, not because I don't want her to say something. We wanted to really hear from the referral because we are persons with disabilities, well as we are the victims, because we are the ones that often experience these abuses, and we need to hear our professionals, the people working in the space, to talk to us. And also, I want to add a voice to this question that disability issue is big. Just like you said, it's big, it's enormous, it's huge. And please, let's not always assume we know what we don't know, because you earn the compounding issue for the survivor. That is why when I spoke earlier, I talked about synergy. The best thing that will happen to us is to synergize with other NGOs. There are experts. There are people who actually knows this at the tip of their finger. There are trained people who are trained to handle these issues. And if you're in synergy with such, when the case arose on your table and you can't handle, quickly reach out. Mostly when it comes to disability issue, like the case of deaf blind is complicated. If it's something you can't handle, please don't assume, don't just work on assumption, don't just get the random persons to come and make things happen. You're making case worse for the survivor, because you will just wake up one morning and hear that this lady is no more, she's dead. Because most of them, when their issues are not handled properly, the next thing they consider is suicide. The kind of traumatic call I receive as a just past woman leader for SCT, Tinubu wife has not received half of it now in the Aso Villa. What do we do? At any time this call comes, what I can handle, I'll look for my next colleague. I work with as a respondent with a rapper. So we have respondents in the 6 area council in every community. When an expert, when an issue comes and you know you can handle, the best thing to do is to make a referral or call for the service or attention of your partner in that issue, because disability issue is complicated. I think on that question, I asked what will OPD do. What we OPD will do is to support you. We cannot support you if we're not in synergy. We cannot support you if you don't reach out. We too, we are learning. We are still in research of our issue because we need to do the needful. So the learning is endless. We keep researching every day, bringing out new ideas to handle our issue, because disability issue is relatively new in Nigeria. But in the Western world where we're learning from is a norm. So please, let's not always work on assumption or try to manage a case because you feel you are in that field, but there are experts that handles all kinds of disability. Thank you.
And no case is hopeless, no matter the level of disability. I will share a case with Bukumi, something that happened in the US, of a lady with multiple disability in a home who was raped by a guy, and she was even pregnant, but they thought her heart was failing until they went. So it was even that child, if you read from the report, you see that that child was like her savior. It was when she went to deliver that child that they got to know. She could not testify. I'm just giving a brief. Bukumi will share it in the group, in the WhatsApp group, so that you read it and see. Her mother testified for her, and that young man was sentenced. So there is no case that is hopeless. It's just us giving it the opportunity, you know, to be able to go through all the processes so that the victim or the survivor can get the needed justice. Please, this synergy is very important. Know when to approach the organizations of persons, the OPDs, know when to bring in the expertise of other organizations. We have psychologists. They are needed. These people can help even understand. Even the teachers, what do they call, the special teachers, yes, some of them have the necessary skills to be able to understand the communication, especially for people with intellectual disability. So please, let's not just throw away any case because of the complexity that it requires. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There's a hand here.
Okay, I don't think, I want to ask if we have someone visually impaired here in the room. Yes. Let's hear from them. Let's hear their own perspective, on this case. Thank you.
Comfort, do you want to say? Okay, let me read the case again. Let me read that again. Can you please let me project, sir? Okay, so after fleeing intimate partner violence, a mother of 2, aged 5 and 8, Funke, she's a woman with visual impairment, reported abuse and is referred to a shelter that has stairs without railings, no tactile marking, and the staffs are unfamiliar with guiding persons with visual impairment. And the question is, should survivor be expected to adapt to inaccessible shelter? How can referral directories capture accessibility information? And what role can OPD play in this situation?
Okay, so from the providers, from the adaptation level, first of all, I will not say I don't think. It is not advisable to expect a person with visual impairment to adapt. Even if, like me, I have a residual vision, that means I still have like a very little vision that can help. But I can't still depend on it fully. Sometimes even when I think I can, sometimes I may walk, and when the stairs does not have like a defined color contrast, sometimes I can fall off and something like that. And talk more of a staircase that doesn't have a rail that the person can lean on to. So it's very important that in such cases, the visual impaired fellow should have an aid. And in the aspect of communications, maybe using any of the tools, we can apply reasonable accommodations. If that accessibility is not there, there are some things we can use in place of another to ensure that for that while that visually impaired fellow is there, the person can be fully attended to. So talking about OPD, Madam Betty have said everything. If you get to the extent that you become confused, helpless, and you don't know how to move forward from here, if you have like a visually impaired client or a survivor or a victim, you can reach out to organizations of persons with visual impairment. We have organizations specifically that is focused on persons with visual impairment. You can link to them. They will give you all the support that you need. And we have women with disabilities who have their own personal NGOs who are doing things for women with disabilities. You can also reach out to them for support, and they will give you everything you need to be able to move on with that survivor.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. From this case study, from this scenario, we can see that the woman, she just fled an intimate partner violence situation. In other words, she has no place to stay. So she needed that shelter. She needed that shelter to be able to survive with her children. But then, from this scenario, we could identify that there is physical inaccessibility in that shelter for this woman with visual impairments. The staff, they have capacity gap. They do not understand. Probably they are just seeing a person with visual impairment for the first time. So they don't even know what to do to attend to her to ensure that she stays in that shelter. And then we are putting the survivor at risk of re-victimization, not from the intimate partner now, but from the shelter and the staffs within the shelter. So these are the things that this scenario initially pointed out. And what can we do? And I am so happy that we've been talking about collaboration. Earlier I said we have this coalition of GBV, Disability Inclusive GBV Responder. It's not as if all of this organization within this coalition has it all. We were supposed to support each other, right? Now, before we do any referral, can we please do accessibility audit to ensure that where we are referring the survivor to is actually accessible? To ensure that you are not referring the survivor to a place where they feel frustrated at the end of the day. Then let's identify alternative safe housing. Shelter, most especially government shelter, should be a safe place where persons with disabilities, whatever kind of impairment, will be able to access services and accommodation needed. Then for staffs of shelter, we need to build capacity. We need to provide orientation on support and mobility assistance, which is something that it is all our responsibility. Then for her, she's fleeing this situation. We can also assume that she has nothing to feed herself and her children. So how are we ensuring that this our referral pathway also take into cognizance economic empowerment for survival. So that we are not just taking them out of the situation, we are not just responding and asking them to seek justice, because even after the whole case and then justice is served, she does not have anything to economically raise her back and reintegrate her back into the society. So all of these are things we also need to consider when responding to women and girls with disability. And I know the last question on this scenario talks about what's the role of OPD. Organizations of persons with disability in the room, I want to leave it open again for us, because I know that we said OPD has a lot. What are the specific roles? What are the specific things that OPD can do in responding, in supporting the referral pathway?
Good afternoon again. Well, the thing here, like everybody here has spoken, especially those from other states, the Kogi, Niger State, Kaduna, all of them have spoken about one thing: funding. Funding is always going to be a problem, especially when handling persons with disability, because like it or not, there's no free food even in Freetown. And when these people come into these facilities and they don't have the wherewithal to even pay for the services that these facilities are offering, it is still a problem for them. That's why, okay, somebody spoke earlier about the facility or the shelter where people go there and sleep with these people with disability, because they are because to them they're offering them a favor, they're doing them a favor. So you see, this is where the problem lies: funding. Because when you come into a willing facility that is available to take in these persons, especially this particular case study now, they don't have the money to install a rail. The OPDs around, we talked about collaborations here. We must not wait till there is funding from outside, because speaking as a Nigerian staying in Nigeria, we understand that there is no help coming from the government in these kinds of things. Even if it's going to come, it's very minimal. It's next to nothing. So when you have no funding from outside other bigger organizations, I think the remaining bodies that are clustered in particular regions, clustered in particular states, can actually chip in. They can help out. One hand washing the other hand will also help the hand get cleaner faster. So I think in this kind of situation, the OPDs will just have to bring about collaboration. We have bodies like NACTAL. NACTAL has all CSOs under them. The national body have all CSOs under them, working together constantly. I believe there's even a group chat where all of them speak. These are places that such shelters can bring out their own problems, and I believe somebody within the OPD space will help out, especially in installing a rail that will help her get up the stairs and not get injured. Thank you.
Do I have any other contribution in the room? Okay.
For some clients like this, because at times we avoid calling them victims or survivors. For clients like this, I think when they're in a shelter, they should be given opportunity for vocational skill training, so that they can hand a degree of financial independence, because economic abuse is a silencer of abuse. So if there's any, or even if she wants to learn from basic education, adult education, entrepreneurship, anything to make life more meaningful for her.
Thank you. Yeah, so lastly to this scenario, I think that while we were discussing earlier, Madam Betty mentioned about sign language interpreter when we were talking about payment or no payment, and she mentioned that yes, she knows that there are some sign language interpreter that are ready to offer pro bono service, and Barrister Florence also said there are different organizations of persons with disability that can actually support the referral process. So I think the first point of call is for us to engage them. You know, yes, we are the experts when it comes to response and referral. But when we have cases that has to do with women and girls with disability, our first point of thinking should be organization of persons with disability. What organization of persons with, which of the organization of persons with disability are you involving in this response to ensure that the process is seamless? You will be surprised. No, you will not be surprised anyway, that by the time you call the organization of persons with disability, at the beginning of the case, they will provide the guidance. They are not giving you the professional advice in this case. You have the expertise. But they are speaking from the point of disability, wearing their disability lens to say, okay, for this case, why not do this? Okay, let's link up with this organization. We have OPD, Joint National Association of Persons with Disability as one, and then we have other individual organization of persons with disability that responds to cases of gender-based violence. And I've done a lot to support facilities like health facilities, the security agency, to ensure disability inclusion. So if you do not know where to go or who to reach, it might make the process seems difficult, but then when you contact and liaise with the right person, the right organization, it will help provide effective service to women and girls with disability. Yes, ma'am.
About reaching out to organizations of persons with disabilities on a case. Imagine that I am the survivor, I'm a person with disability, and you, the organization that is taking up my case, you are not even a person with disability, and you just approach me that you want to help me. How best can you help me when you are not even a person with disability? So imagine that you now reach out to organization of person with disability, and someone from that organization who is well known now reach out to the survivor you are working for. The person is likely to be more open at this point, knowing that yes, I know this woman with disability since she's involved in the case that is about helping me, then I can trust the process. So reaching out to organizations of persons with disabilities when dealing with cases that are for us, I think it will add up to getting the success of solving that issue.
Okay, I actually wanted others to talk because, like I always say, our issue is big. In our community, there are some of us, not everyone, who work as a family. As little as wheelchair, if your facility needs a wheelchair and you do not have, when it arises, if you call, there are people who are willing. Let me call one person. A case occurred where somebody needed a wheelchair at all costs. He has to release what he has. He said, Bessie, just give them my wheelchair. I don't mind staying at home for today. We don't even have a wheelchair to give. He volunteered and gave me his wheelchair. We use it to salvage the situation after we return back. Then we tax ourselves. This one we don't need to go and start writing, asking anybody because it's an emergency. We tax ourselves to make sure a wheelchair was provided for that child. This child was almost dropping out of school. I needed to go for an exam. On that day, there was no wheelchair for her to even partake in the exam. What I'm saying is, now you have to know the fact that when you hear JONAPWD, JONAPWD is a joint national Association of Persons with Disability in Nigeria. It is in the whole 36 states, all the local governments and communities. So if you want to reach out to persons with disability in your community, find out who is the JONAPWD chairman, who is the JONAPWD leader, who is the JONAPWD coordinator in that community. So that if you don't really know the OPDs, that is the Organization of Persons with Disability groups around you, through these coordinators, they will link you to one. As little as wheelchair, somebody can volunteer. We can even provide. Now, a step further is going to Disability Commission. Disability Commission has these devices in place. At a point you need it, if you don't have, they might even reach out to schools or persons with disability where these facilities are to use it to salvage the situation at hand at that point in time. Let's take the Braille machine, for instance. If you have a case that you need a Braille machine, there is School of the Blind in Jabi. If our stakeholders go there to say, please, proprietaries, can you spare us for just a day or two? We needed to investigate an issue. And because of the what binds us together, they will release it. Because this assistive device, in all honesty, some are expensive. Some are not readily on ground. But when need arises, please speak out. That will be made available for you. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. In response to what Bekumi said, concerning the pro bono, I am from Legal Aid Council of Nigeria. And one thing we do is giving a voice to the voiceless. And there is a lot of opportunity when it comes to legal representation, mediation, and advice. And our service, as you know, is free. And we have lawyers across Nigeria. I would suggest that most of this, we are stakeholders in JONAPWD already. My being here is automatically in the knowledge of my DG. And if I live here, I will brief him either through report writing or invited me to the office. What I'm saying is that if you have an issue that you need, warrant you a lawyer, we are there to give. And me representing the organization here, if you have such issue, you can contact me. I will give my phone number. When you called me that you need a lawyer and you get to our office and we're not treated well, just call me. We'll call them direct and you'll get a very good service. I know majority of the people who are running to seek for this help may not afford the service of legal practitioner. So if we can be there to offer free, it's a good one. So I advise everyone here, if you have a contact with with any issue that needs a lawyer, please consult us. Our office is open across 36 states of Nigeria. Thank you.
This is going to be the last person.
Good afternoon again. My name is Eileen. Okay, I'm from Dubai. I have a strong person with disabilities who speak more on accessibility audit. Okay, we have been discussing about GBD challenge.
Okay, so I'm stepping down into another role right now. I'm going to be interpreting for Ellen. So this conversation is very key when it comes to gender-based violence and support for survivors. Recommendations that have been given is that organization of persons with disability should be included in GBV response. So I'm going to share one example. Some years ago, an organization that work around violence called me and say, Elino, we have a deaf lady. We don't have the budget. We don't know how to support this deaf lady. And remember, when you take up a GBV case, you will not, you know, as an organization, you are working in responding to. So when it comes to a deaf lady, we are now hearing that there is no budget, and then they were referred back to our office because it was a case of physical abuse. The lady has a swollen eye, and she's also with children. There were knife cuts within the body. So we do not have excuse. We carry the case to the police, and she needs a shelter. And then for us getting a shelter at that point, we couldn't find a shelter with accessibility. And it is unprofessional to bring such person to our home as a responder, as a service provider. So based on inclusive gender-based violence response, we should have emergency budget separated in our organization to ensure that whenever a woman with disability comes to the facility to access services, we are able to take from this budget to respond. And then we can also raise recommendation or referral to other shelters, because in my 5 years of working, all of the shelters that I have seen when referring cases of gender-based violence are not accessible. Yes, I am happy to see that there is an accessibility audit conducted, but then the case is still the same. We get to hear at every time that our facilities are not accessible. So I think inclusive budgeting is very important. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, Madam Elena. Sorry. Okay, back to Bukumi right now. So thank you so much. Can I move to the next slide, sir? Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your contribution. Please, can you help me project the group work, sir? So right now, I would like us to do a group activity. And I am going to be dividing us in this room into 5 groups, right? Yes. Yes, I'm going to be dividing us into 5 groups. Before the group activity come up, I would go around the table, and I would like us to pick a number from 1 to 5. 1 to 5, 1 to 5. We do like that, and then we'll divide us into 5 groups for us to quickly work on this group activity. I'm starting from the first table by my left. Avi? 1, 2, 3. So I'm moving to the first table by my right. 3, 4, and 5. So we are going to start all over again from the middle table. Comfort, I'm on your table. So 1, 2, 3. Comfort, you are 4. Ezekiel, you are 5. 1 again. 2. So I'm moving to the table by my left. 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you are 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then 1, 2. You're 3, 4, and 5. Maya 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Yes. All right. So we have the 5 groups, and comfort your number. 1, right? Okay. So all the 1, you're 5. Oh, you are 5. I'm going to start from the 5 then. So all the number 5 should please come to Madam Betty's table. Sorry, ma. Barrister Florence. Okay. I'm going to move you. So all the 5 should come to Madam Betty's table, which is the first table to the front by my right. And then all the 2 should stay in the middle here. The table in the middle, all the 2 should stay. All the 2 here. All the 5. 1 should come to this table here. Then all the 3 should stay on the last table. And all the 4 should move to this table on this side. So we have 1 on the first table on the left, on my left, 1 on the first table on my left, 2 in the middle table, 3 on the last table behind, 4 on the last table to my left, and 5 on the first table to my right. 2 in the middle. 3 at the back. Okay, so this is what we are going to be doing. We are going to move through the entry points, the response, the recovery, the justice and safety, and the reintegration. So group 1 will be working on the entry points. Group 2, the response. Group 3, recovery. Group 4, justice and safety. Group 5, reintegration. And what are we going to be doing? We are going to speak about the strategic leverage points that we have. What is currently happening for each of these referral pathway. So if we are working on group 1, what is the strategic leverage that we have? What is currently happening with the entry points when it comes to response for women and girls with disability? Who are the decision makers? Who are the stakeholders that are involved in the entry point? How else can the coalition, how else can we, as the Coalition of Disability Inclusive GBV Responder, engage? If we are in group 1, how else can we engage at the entry point? And then, what timeline do we have? What resources do we need? And what are the risks? What could go wrong and how can we manage it? So group 1, you're working on entry points. Group 2, response. Group 3, recovery. Group 4, justice and safety. Group 5, reintegration. And we are going to clearly define the strategic points, the decision maker. How else can we engage as a coalition of GBV, Disability Inclusive GBV Responder? And then what time do we want to give ourselves, and what resources do we need, and what are the risk mitigation that we want to provide? I hope this is clear. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So what are the strategic leverage points? What is currently happening with justice and safety for women and girls with disabilities that are experience GBV? Who are the decision maker? How else can the coalition, as we are in this room, how else can we engage? Then what time frame do we want to set for ourselves? What are the resources that we will need? And what are the risks? And how are we going to mitigate that? Is it clear now? Sorry? Okay, so these are the things we are going to respond to for each of the group. This is the question. For each of the group. So group 1, our focus is entry points. Group 2, our focus is just on response. So on response, we are stating, clearly defining the strategic leverage points that we have on response. Who are the decision makers? How can this group support response for us? What time frame do we want to set for those strategic leverage points that we have written down? And then what are the resources to respond to that? And what are the risks that we are envisaging? We will choose it by ourselves in our group. So, what? Yes. So every group will choose who is going to present on their behalf. We choose our note taker and who is going to present on our behalf. I hope we are good to go. Yes. Okay, thank you. 10 minutes more. Can we start wrapping up? 10 minutes more. together. So we are going to start with the presentation right now. Yes, sir. No, this is group one. Group one is also ready. So we are going to start with group one. Group, okay. We are going to start with group one. It's going to be short presentation. It's not going to take much time. 2 minutes for the presentation. So please, can we have our attention? Please, let's listen so that we'll be able to ask them questions, so that we'll be able to refine this presentation and ensure that we have disability inclusive entry points, response, recovery, referral, and reintegration. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon once again. So we are members of group one, and our assignment was so simple. Hello, one house. Our assignment was simple, the entry point. So, and it was broken down to about 6 questions. So we have the strategic leverage, which is medical. One of the first respondents, or what happened when a victim is a survivor, I think she called them patient also, is brought to the houses. First of all, they assess medical care, and also the laws and policies in the state where the home is in existence is being taken into consideration, because you cannot just go it and do as you wish. So the laws of that place is very, very important. And also awareness creation. Awareness creation is something that we cannot have. Vocational skills acquisition that these survivors have to go through after, to a certain level. That's from after taking medication and all. It gets to a point where you have to empower the survivors before sending them out into the streets or back home. We have hotlines that if there is any case, you can easily call to report. We have rehabilitation services, educational services, and mental health support. Mental health is very, very important. Everybody, being it a person with disability, being it a survivor of any gender-based violence, we all need mental health in our life. And also we have stakeholders involved. Who are the stakeholders that we are to involve in the work we do? We have, raise it up, Ministry of Health, which is, if you see from the strategic leverage, medical health is one of the first things that survivors go through. So Ministry of Health, Ministry of Justice, we go to court, we take cases to court. Without the Ministry of Justice, taking these cases to court won't be possible. We have social welfare. We have law enforcement agencies. They are very, very important. They support in the work we do at the homes, because they help enforce laws that are supposed to be carried out. We have technology platforms. One will ask, what is technology doing there? Yes, we need technology to call, to report cases. It's true, some of these cases are being reported through phone calls or text messages. We also have Human Rights Commission. These are some of the stakeholders we need in the course of doing our work. We have Human Rights Commission. The commission is saddled with the responsibilities of protecting the rights, every right of human beings. So laws, our legislative laws and policies. And we also have the NCPW, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. How best should coalition engage? So legislative advocacy, inclusion in all sections. There are organizations that are very good in this strategic mentioning we are talking here. So you have to identify an organization that is very good in data collection to work with you. You also have to identify an organization that is good in. We have to identify an organization that is very good in advocacy engagement. There are some organizations that they are so good when they follow you to any office for an advocacy engagement. There is no way you're not going to get what you went there to do. And also case tracking, and also mainstreaming disability inclusion. We have to make sure that disability inclusion is being mainstream in everything other organizations are doing, and agencies too. What are the time frames we are working on? We have the short-term frame, which is within 48 hours of when a victim is being brought to the home. Within these 48 hours, a victim is supposed to access healthcare services. You cannot just imagine that a rape case victim is being brought to the house and you just dump the person there. Some of the evidence will be lost if you don't swing into action. So within 48 hours, a survivor is supposed to be attended to in terms of getting the necessary evidence that are needed, and that is done through science, which is health. We have the medium term, which is 3 to 6 months. At this point, a survivor is supposed to be allocated to a well-accessible and safe shelter within 3 to 6 months. And we have the long term, which is 6 to 1 year, depending on how long the case is in the court. You don't have to make a case to go beyond 1 year plus, because one, you, the person that is even heading that case or working for justice, you might get tired at some point. So within 6 to 1 year, a case, if not that courts are going on strike here and there, you are supposed to at least get a tangible result. And what are the resources needed to do all of this that we're talking about? We have laws and policies. Without laws and policies, you cannot go to a court. You cannot hold a perpetrator accountable. So you make use of the laws and policies that exist where that home is being established. Funding. Money makes the world go round. So we need funding to work. Strong collaboration. When you have a strong collaboration with different organizations working together, there's no way that you will lose a case, or there's no way that a case will not gain popularity and other people will also join in. This collaboration must not really be with organizations. It can be individuals too. Imagine that your case is so popular, some individuals will get to be interested and will want to join forces with you. So we have technical support. We have to collaborate with people who have the technical know-how to go about cases like this, because we're talking about gender-based violence. You will not go and get someone who is into building to come and join forces with you to do a case on gender-based violence. They don't even understand what violence or gender means. So you have, we need communication tools. We need communication tools. We have, imagine you are working for a case for someone who is visually impaired and you don't have braille materials. How would this person even know that, okay, what you are communicating out there? And sign language interpreters in court, we need them. So communication tool is very important. Increase awareness, very, very important. Last but not the least, we have risk mitigation. We have weakness hostility. We have a lack of support facilities and services. Some of the facilities, yes, they are not accessible. So this hinder the way we are supposed to work. We have secondary victimization. Imagine that a victim is being taken to a shelter home or a shelter home and is being victimized in the home again. We have survivor centers. We have traumatization. There are some survivors that are so traumatized, so they need rehab. They need to be rehabilitated. They need their mental health to be stabilized before further help is being done. So, and we also talked about creating a safe space. The homes are supposed to be safe. So we make sure that we create a safe space. When Bukumi was presenting in the morning, she gave us a picture of a trauma something, a room whereby people who are so traumatized need to retire back to rest there when they are being interviewed or all. So we need that, build a confidentiality. We need to build confidence in the survivors to be able to trust us, to tell us what really happened. And also, we have to be empathetic when dealing with people, when dealing with survivors. If we are not empathetic, if we not put ourselves in their shoes, definitely we are not going to get the best out of them. Thank you.
We have any question, comments for group 1? Any question for group 1? Comments? Okay. Group 2. Thank you, group 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we're from Group 2, and our presentation is on a response. So how have these organizations been responding to disability? Sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous, but then I'll just proceed. So they've been able to provide accessible support services / structures. So in certain facilities, there are ramps. They've been able to provide sign language interpreters for the deaf, and psychosocial support. That's here. So then we have training for service providers on GBV and disabilities. Some of these organizations have trained their staff. NCDC is an example. JONAPWD 2 is an example. Then they have counseling for survivors and provision of psychosocial support. So to also respond, they've been able to create hotlines. I know Mrs. Bisi Ajayi they mentioned the Chechayara helpline. Then Lagos DSVA 2 has a toll-free line that people can also report to. Even persons with disabilities can call the toll-free line. Then the stakeholders that we should engage, we have organizations of persons with disabilities, the OPDs, which includes JONAPWD. Then we have government officials, we have NGOs and CSOs working on GBV and disability rights. Then we have law enforcement agencies, international organizations too are not left out. International organizations such as Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, because they do a lot of programs involving women, children, and persons with disabilities. Then how can the coalition engage? So we have by engaging stakeholders through advocacy and inclusive awareness programs. I mean, we need to visit these stakeholders so that they are aware of disability rights. Sorry. Then we have true collaborations with OPDs. Organizations need to continuously collaborate with the OPDs, creating synergy between them. Then we have ensuring accessibility in shelters. I mean, most government shelters are not accessible, so we need to make sure that they are accessible. So then time frame. We have, for short term, provision of immediate and accessible services. So these organizations should be accessible to provide immediate services to the survivors. Then we have medium-term time frame, building the capacity of shelter managers and service providers. I mean, this is a continuous thing. it will not be nice where the shelter managers are not even equipped or don't even know what to do when the survivors come into their facilities. Then long term, we have advocacy for inclusive policies and cultural shifts in communities. These organizations need to continue to advocate for disability inclusive policies to be included in Nigeria. Then resources needed. Funding, I know funding cuts across everything. So there has to be funding for proper shelters, funding for provision of professionals that would engage the survivors. Then expertise, we need professionals in disability space. Then provision of accessible communication tools, including e.g. brailles. Then risk mitigation. To engage diverse stakeholders for sustainability. I mean, if you're creating a policy or like you're having accessible services, you need to engage diverse stakeholders. Then the last, ensuring inclusive, accessible services. So I think that's the last one. So thank you.
Do we have any question for them? Group 3. I'll leave everything. Group 3.
So, good evening once more. We're group 3 and our question is on recovery. Number 1, strategic leverage points. We have the healthcare, that's where SAC centers come in. We have psychosocial support for recovery. We have the legal services and also the security agencies. So because recovery is supposed to be holistic, that's why we mentioned all these points as entry points for recovery. Then decision makers involved. We still have security agencies. We have, they're the ones in charge of investigating, of course, and that's for justice, access to justice. Because we know that part of recovery sometimes can also be for the survivor to get justice. So we have security agencies, we have psychosocial workers, that's where the counselors come in. We have health caregivers for their physical health. We have the judiciary, that's those in charge of handling the cases. And then we also have the caregivers of the survivors. They are also important part of the decision makers in the recovery of the survivor. How else should coalition engage? We have monthly meetings for the coalition so that they can discuss arising issues, challenges, and then what can be done better. We have capacity building for service providers. The coalition can engage with service providers to build their capacity on how best to respond to issues of persons with disability. Collaboration between CSOs and OPDs. We also have community outreaches. And then for time required, because we are talking of recovery, we said it should be long term. The time is because recovery different people can take, you need as much time as you need for the recovery to go on. So we have long time. And then what resources are needed? We need plenty funds. We need human resources. We also need, there's need for shelter, then interpreters at centers and people who provide services. And then we also, talking about evidence, that's where early reporting comes in so that evidence can be collated. Risk mitigation, we talked about behavioral risk. There are professional risks, confidentiality risks, physical risks, and security risks. Thank you.
Let's move quickly to group 4, the group with the extra sheet. Yes, please. They have extra.
I want to believe. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to believe that we are the only group that has that collected extra sheets. Anywhere that collected extra sheets, they don't know book. They don't know book like us. All right, so this is from group 4. But before that, we're going to start with a quote. It says, some PWDs, as people with disabilities, don't know their rights. That's the beginning of our own discussion. So this presentation is about we are talking about the law, justice, and safety. How we as a body can help people with disability, especially gender-based violence. So we have strategic leverage points, the law. First of all, the Constitution. Then we go into VAP Act, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Then we have the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Prohibition Act also. We have the UNTRPD, that is for that is the UN stand against people the issues with people with disability. And then we have the administration of criminal justice and the law. So going from there, we have the current situation. What are the issues that we can discuss that involves the safety and justice of these persons? We have lack of access to justice, which entails inaccessibility to the police station, method of investigation, that is the people that are even investigating these issues don't even know what it is they're supposed to be investigating. We have attitudinal disposition of, my school now, night school, no verse. The attitudinal disposition of law enforcement agents. Sometimes you as somebody with disability, the police person doesn't even want to talk to you because they already see you at a disadvantage. They don't want to go out of their way to help you. So that is one of the issues. Then we have lack of proper knowledge of disability. First thing we said was some people with disability don't know their rights. So we have lack of proper knowledge of disability. That is, some of these investigators don't even know anything about disability. They just see you and think, in Hausa they say na gurugu, dan gurugu. So when you are insulted like that already, the person doesn't even want to help you going forward. Then we have cost of litigation. Cost of litigation can include payment of an interpreter, payment of your lawyer, payment of the person taking you to the courtroom. These are costs of litigation that some of these people can't afford. Then we have inaccessibility of physical help, and then communication barriers. All of these are issues that people, especially gender-based violence, people that suffer, survivors of gender-based violence, go through. Then we have decision makers, people that can help in these situations. First of all, we have law enforcement agents and NAPTIP, and we believe that we know that NAPTIP falls under law enforcement agents. And then we have the court. When we say the court, we're talking about the judges. And then we have the lawyers, and then we have legal aid, National Human Rights Commission. These are people that we know can help in these situations. Then we have Public Complaints Commission, Federal Ministry of Justice, National Commission of People with Disability, CSOs and OPDs, all of us seated here. Most of us seated here, we are all CSO and OPDs. And then ALWD, that is Association of Lawyers with Disability. Thank you. the second sheet don't come outside now. So how else can the coalition engage? We have collaboration and partnership. Seated here now, instead of waiting for outside funding, we can sit with ourselves here, share contacts, network. Please, I have an issue. Let me refer this person to you. Let us talk about this on the phone. How much can we help? Where can we come in? How much do you need? These are how collaboration and partnership help. Awareness and sensitization, we already know this. We have already been made aware. We are already in platforms, so we are trying to make other people aware of issues of surrounding people with disability. These are what we're talking about here. Capacity building of law enforcement agents. I would like to use my own organization where I work as an example. We had a pro bono psychosocial support training for the Civil Defense Corps last year, late last year. And even NACTA, we even gave pro bono training. These are how you can help. You must not use money. You must not collect money from these agencies to give them a capacity building training. You can just call them and, sorry, we're almost done. So then we have capacity building of NJI, that is the National Justice Institution, sorry, make a day show. National Judicial Institute. Then we have synergy with the NBA to provide pro bono legal services. Then we're not talking about time frame. We're talking about time frame. We have the immediate mobilization of the coalition. That is all the bodies that were mentioned earlier. And setting terms of reference. How do we engage? Then next thing we have is the mapping out of strategic stakeholders. Who are strategic stakeholders? Law enforcement agencies, NJI, the NBA, NAPTIP. These are strategic partners that we can map out and tell them this is what we have to do and this is how we're going to go about it. Then resources needed, expertise, human capital. We are trying to see how funding will not always be a problem. We can help ourselves within ourselves as a community. This is already a forum. This is already a community. We can help ourselves within this community without asking for outside help. And above all, still, we have funding. We need funds. Then partnership and collaboration. These are resources that we can still use. We've already talked about it. Everybody here knows about collaboration and networking. That is why we are here. Then lastly, the risks. We have risk of unwilling survivor. A survivor is in your front, but he doesn't want to speak. What do you do about that? Societal stigma, lack of resources, intimidation. These are these are risks that you're going to encounter on your way. How do you manage them? We have witness protection. We have implementation of the available laws that are supporting and defending these people with disability who have gone through GBV. And then lastly, sensitization and awareness and reassurance. Thank you very much from Group 4.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Can we have the last group? Group 5.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon once again, everyone. So this is Group 5, and we're talking about reintegration. So for strategic leverage points, we talk about the organizations and we talk about the fact that there's awareness in the country, national response and awareness at country level. And we talked about the RRR, return, readmission, and reintegration, the NAPTIP 5 pillars, Relational Commission for Refugees. We also talk about the fact that there are documentations, policies, that are already in place as regards reintegration up to the local government levels. Then for number 2 question, we were talking about all society organizations, government agencies, they are all involved when it comes to reintegration. We've mentioned NAPTIP again, the OPDs, NACTAL members, faith-based organizations, even international organizations like the IOM. Then we also talked about how that partnership synergy to address SDG 17 can also help in reintegration. We talked about capacity building training and retraining of staffs, because there are sometimes staffs might have been trained in a particular organization on how reintegration goes, and then when they leave, the gap shows again. So we talked about retraining, inclusive programs. So when programs are ongoing or when programs are being organized, having persons with disabilities in mind in the structure of the program is important. So it's not just about them attending, how do they benefit from the program. Then we talked about accessibility to these programs and to the services that are available. So when we talked about time frame, we said it could take 24 hours, that's to 1 week for trauma healing, family tracing and reintegration. Sometimes 1 month to 3 months for M&E, that's monitoring and evaluation, care, individual care plan, because the care plan must be structured to individual needs, not just generic. And 1 year and above for total reconciliation. Then medium term, in addition, we also talk about adding vocational skills, education, economic empowerment, soft skills and life skills, such that when the person even gets reintegrated back to the society, they have something that they are doing. They are not just getting back to the society without any thought or anything to do. They have skills that they've learned that it can make them balance well back to the society. We also talk about reintegration support for long-term plan, reintegration support, grants, seed money, and resources. Just like I said, it's not just about them getting back to the society, but how well equipped are they to function properly in the society after they've been rescued and after they've gone through recovery. Then we talked about creating safe space and specialized services, which I've also identified, because when we're talking about persons with disability, there are different forms and types of disabilities. So specialized services is very important. Then, no, just not. Okay, that's all. So yeah, number 6 that we have here, lastly, we talked about ethical and confidentiality issues, having standard operating procedures on how to go about the process of reintegration, training and retraining, monitoring and evaluation, staff retraining, transfer or training of local persons. Those are part of the risk that we identified, transferring of trained personnel. So how do we mitigate that? Keep on training and retraining. We talked about capacity building, and also the blind policy gaps. Let's update policies to address current problems and current trends of what is happening. We'll not just say, okay, these policies have been created. Is this still relevant in today's world? And yeah, I think that's all from Group 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? Can we please give ourselves a round of applause? Beautiful, beautiful presentations. Well done. Beautiful presentations. Thank you so much. Are we together? Are we together? Okay, so thank you so much for all of this presentation. We have identified the processes from the entry points to the response to reintegration. And then we have also looked at what we can do as a coalition. Because we are all in this room, like one of the presenters said, we are already a community of disability inclusive GBV responder. So we do not have all the capacity, but we have some people that have other capacities that we are lacking. And that's why we are here as a community of responder. And I love one of the presenters when they said, let's start having meetings and let's see what we can do. We don't have to wait for funds from outside. So can we also start, we do together as a community of responders to see that we are ensuring disability inclusive service delivery for persons with disability when it comes to gender-based violence. How can we now put our resources together to attract funds to ensure that we are now implementing projects that respond to GBV cases for women and girls with disabilities? All of this beautiful presentation will be put together for us. And I'll also be sharing that on our group. I'm going to be expanding the group. That's one of the to-dos for me after this training. I'm going to expand the group add the new persons that we have, the new states that we have in the room to the group. And then I'll also be sharing this, our group activities on that group for us to be able to make comments, fine-tune the activity, the group work, and then we will now reshare after we have the final copy. I want to appreciate us once again for taking time and the willingness for us to ensure that we are providing a service that is disability inclusive and at the same time survivor centered. For referral directory, we are all here. Please let us network. Let's make contacts and ensure that we are using the human capital that we are building, the resources we are building together in this room to respond to GBV cases for women and girls with disabilities. And I think lastly, I'm going to say that as first line responder, we should ensure that reasonable accommodation is by default for us. So every time we're thinking about responding to GBV cases, women and girls with disability, by default, reasonable accommodation is something that we're taking cognizance of. And on this note, do we have any other comments or contribution in the room before we bring this session to a close while we go for our lunch break? Okay. I'm going to take the silence for a no, right? So, okay. Thank you very much once again. Please, if you are out of Abuja participants, if you had come into this training from a different state from Abuja, please kindly drop your transport receipt with me or my colleague. She's standing behind. Please drop the transport receipt so that we can make reimbursements for your transport and for your per diem. So on this note, lunch is served. Lunch is served. It's getting cold. We can move to the restaurant. It's just by the left. Once you enter the lobby, it's just by the left. Yes, they will warm it for us. It's not very good. So it's just by the left when we get to the reception. Please get your lunch. We'll be calling again. We are going to be having a follow-up, which is going to be a virtual engagement. And we'll be sharing the links and the details with us. Please, thank you once again very much for your time. And thank you for your meaningful participation and engagement in this training. On behalf of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, I say thank you and God bless you. Do have a nice trip back home for those that are from out of Abuja. And those that are in Abuja,